This
is
the
Bhangra Podcast. Welcome to another episode of the Bhangra Podcast. Today we have part 1 of an extensive interview with Furteelay Shokeen. The team has been around since 2009 when some of the dancers were only 12 years old. This first part is really going to cover how Furteelay was initially founded, how they changed from their original name to Furteelay, how a bunch of 8th graders got together and started one of the most successful teams in North America, and a lot of the early growing pains they dealt with. Also, we talk about where the shings came from. As always, be sure to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and Podchaser. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Discord at the Bhangra Pod. And most importantly, subscribe wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. We started our conversation with some brief introductions and a list of the OG Furteelay in all their peach fuzz glory.
What's up, guys? This is GSimz. Been with Furteelay since the start, 2009.
What's up? This is Sunpreet. I joined late 2009, early 2010.
Hey, what's up? My name's Sahab. I joined in 2016 after college.
What's up, guys? I'm Soorya. I joined Furteelay 2016, pretty much same time as Sahab.
And I made a list because I wanted to make sure I recognized everybody who joined part of the originals. So we had Dave, Vic, Daman, Sunpreet, Arun, Bobby, AJ, Sahil, Nirmal Datoli, Karan Datoli, Manishi, Sunny, Parmveer, Sakraj. And I hope I didn't miss anybody. But that was like the original core that we had started with. The question everyone's wanted to know, how did Furteelay start? So a little bit of background on myself. I, like a lot of kids, just grew up doing Bhangra culturally because it was part of the family. My dad's alumni group, we used to have parties every once a year within Michigan, and I would go there and perform with the Bhangra team that was kind of there. So it was like something I was kind of already doing, but there came a point where I started watching stuff like Z Bhangra or Khalsa Junction, and I think GTV in the very primitive days, and like I was like, yo, I really want to just be on stage. It wasn't even anything about like winning or like proving anything. It was just like, yo, what they're doing on stage right now, it's sick. I just want to get on stage somehow, some way. So I tried with that team that kind of was initially part of, but didn't have luck with it, whether it was, parents didn't want to or whatever the case may be. It was just a little difficult to get to that point where I could be on a stage competing. And through that's where the idea initially inspired, and with the support of my sister especially and my family, they were like, why don't you just create your own team? Like, if you're not getting this opportunity, and maybe because I was too young in 8th grade, and who the heck would think an 8th grader
You're telling me you started Furteelay at the 8th grade?
That's the summer before. So this is like,
oh my god,
probably before like Furteelay is forming. Like either I had just finished 8th grade or I'm transitioning into 9th, some period around there.
So, dude, how old was Arun? Like, Arun was like one of the more famous members of Furteelay. How was a guy in diapers at this point? Like, how old was he?
I joined when I was 15 or 16, which meant he was 12 or 13.
Oh my god.
So I remember hearing like whispers about this team, right? And then I think I hit up Simz after that, and it was actually on BTF. I hit Simz up on BTF. I think I still have that message. But I remember Simz, he typed up this long message, and he was like, "Oh, we'd love to have you," and this and that. But at the end of the message, he was like, "At this point, we're only going to add you as a reserve. Like we don't even want you full time." He was like, we're just gonna add you as a reserve for now, and then if you're good, we'll bump you up to full time.
All right.
I was like, all right, straight, I'll take it. That's good enough for me. And so yeah, it just kind of went from there, and then that's how I joined the team.
The conception of like Furteelay like coming together before even the name, because I'll tell you one thing right now, we started with Nachde Punjabi Gabru. That was the name that initially came that we started with. And yeah, so I think we had Nachde NPG at Bhangra Fusion and Jawani, and then after that I believe we changed it when we went to Musti. Bhangra Fusion, we didn't even get accepted, and then we asked if we could be exhibition, or I think we applied for both, and that was just like, you know, the feeling that we always wanted. Let's just get on stage, and then we started getting that, and then we got accepted to Jawani, and then I think that's where we first had our like lesson of like how you should actually go to comps a little bit more prepared. Like the week of, you shouldn't be like telling how to do the move. We had Manu, shout out Manu Harsimran from PDDS, who guest danced with us at that time. Panj Daryawan Dishan, OG Detroit live Bhangra team, where we picked up a lot of stuff from them. And he essentially, one of the guys I knew, and he came through for that comp, Jawani, which was in Brampton, I believe, or somewhere around there. And I think like the week he came in, like the week before we left, he's like, what the hell? You guys are like learning like how to do the moves properly like the week of that you're going to the comp. Like next time you should not be doing this shit. And then like when we went to tech time, like there was so much shit where like you're just calling out our dancers like for like fucking up, like endless shit.
So I'm just like imagining this like 20-year-old yelling at like 15-year-olds. Oh, you fucking suck! What are you guys doing?
That's exactly how it was. Like we weren't old enough to drive ourselves to the competition. That's how young we were.
Yeah, our parents drove us.
And then we wanted Arun to dance, but there's an age limit of 16.
Now, here's where the interview gets a bit difficult to follow since we kept jumping back and forth, not really naming the years of all these competitions. So I'm going to chime in every now and then and tell y'all when these comps were and just clarify any confusing information. So Jawani was in 2010. Later during the summer of 2010, Big Apple happens. Then VPD happens in 2011. And then a month later, MLIB, also known as My Life is Bhangra, occurs.
Big Apple that summer. And I think, first of all, we were just so excited because I think we were still riding on the like, yeah, we weren't placing, but like, oh my God, we're going to comps. Like, this is cool.
Yeah.
Like, really exciting. And then I think that's where I think we initially were like, okay, we need to like kind of pick up what we're doing. Like we were clean here, but we got feedback that like our formations were like literally in one spot like the whole time or one segment.
Gotcha.
Like you guys aren't really doing anything cool. So we tried to add a little bit of flavor to that when we got to VPD. VPD was where we snapped. We went to Big Apple again, the second one, and that's where Sunpreet had mentioned earlier, one of the turning points where we placed. We got our first validation. We tied third with DCBC, and that was the biggest thing. So we kind of did have a high. We're like, oh my God, we like got third, and we can do this. And then we go to VPD, and then we fall flat. And I think that's why there was like that turning point of like, we tasted success a little bit, and then we fell flat again, and then we were just like, no, like this is not going to be acceptable.
So just to preface VPD, I think VPD was in North Carolina or South Carolina, one of the two, and we had just driven down like 20 hours the night before or something like that, and so we had a bunch of car trouble, and so we were already kind of like frustrated, and then the competition happened, and we were like, okay, it's been a while now. And like Sim said, it's like the high of going to competitions, it wore off because at this point it's been about 1.5 or 2 years.
And one thing we always kept on hearing too was like, when you guys get older, you're going to be sick. And I think that's something that also frustrated us. We were like, we're tired of hearing this. Like, we know we have the talent, we know we can do it, but like, why can't we do it? And I think that moment was very special because I think Sunpreet and I knew like something needed to change. And then from there, like, describing the room, I think we just told everyone like, hey, we're meeting in this room, come through. So like wherever anybody could find a seat, they were sitting. And then it was just me and Sunpreet talking of like, this is not happening anymore. And like it was more of the tone and more of the vibe that we gave the team. Like we are either like this is not going to work out, or we're going to fix our shit and get it together. And I think it was more so the later, like, we're going to get better. Like, I don't think we gave up on keep on going, but there was definitely a change, and like we wanted it so bad. And Sunpreet and I let everyone know in the room that we all can do this and we wanted it and it's going to change. And I think we had never had to talk like that before. And everything just changed. I remember the practices after that, like Sunpreet and I pushed everyone like crazy, like we had never done before. And like, I don't think everyone would be bought in that system if we didn't have that talk. Like if everyone wasn't on the same game field, because practices changed in terms of how we ran them. Like we were like, we are going to go hard. We're going to be the hardest workers in the room. Let's push ourselves until like we're absolutely out of energy at practice. And I remember like that was the first time like we were like laying in that Salem cafeteria, like out of breath, like we pushed ourselves. And I think that also just shifted like our focus at practice. Our feet used to get so freaking dirty, I remember, and like people's warts and shit. And like I think when we were like stretching in circles, we would see it and people would show like, yo, this wart's nasty. And we had to go through loopholes to get that freaking spot, because like there was I wish I remembered more, but like there was like an off counselor or something that we had to go get something signed in order to be allowed to use it. And then we had to use Sonny because he was older, one of the like he was 18 of age and we were still younger, so he was technically like our guidance or whatever. So like we had to get this form signed, and sometimes we wouldn't, and we have to go during lunch to get it. And then like sometimes people would come and ask like, what are you doing? Like I remember the security guards would come, and it was it was a whole mess.
Oh my god.
Talking to the Furteelay guys, VPD was a huge turning point for the team, but the big question remained, what did they need to do to reach that next level? I asked them where they looked to.
I think a lot of it was honestly organic. Yes, so many examples, like seeing Toronto teams like SGPD, NJ, like watching them have success. We definitely picked up on a few things of like,
people in the scene, I guess they saw something in us. I don't, not to get like cheesy and stuff, but
Nah, but dude, you were like 5 years
Legit?
old. If I saw a 5-year-old fucking murdering it, I was kind of like, yo, I want to talk to this kid.
Exactly. They would come up to us and be like, yo, you guys are really good. And then they'd go off and be like, oh, you should really try this, or you should try this, or you should try this. And so we had a lot of people that were looking at us like these little guys running around. And they were like, if you do this, and this, it'll help. And there was a lot of that willingness to share with us, and we just kind of soaked it all in because we didn't know what we were doing. So we tried everything, and then kind of naturally we figured out what worked, and then we just ran with it.
So I think it was more of like we knew what happened, but now we had this new energy. So it was more of like, we have a competition coming up. How can we go change the narrative? How can, like, this is, I feel like we're Furteelay, where we really became Furteelay. And I think that energy, that passion, the practices leading up, even to a point where I don't think we even realized how good we got until like we got to tech time and kind of saw everything like, holy shit, like we actually brought like a really good product. And I think team was clicking, chemistry was really good, everyone had bought in the system, and we were ready. And like I think a lot of people told us this, that when we walked in to that mixer, like it wasn't like a negative feeling towards anybody or anything. Like we were still like those happy kids, but when people saw our faces, they were like, oh shit, these guys are here to rip that stage apart.
Now we're jumping to the placing ceremony at My Life is Bhangra 2011, also known as MLIB.
Well, I'll go real quick. I'm always skeptical, and all the teammates know this. I'm always like thinking worst case scenario. Anytime you see me when placings are going on, like I'm just like very nervous. So
I can't say that it was surefire that like we walked on stage for the award ceremony and we were like, okay, just give us first. I think it was more like okay, they called third, they called second. Like it's possible it's us, but it's also not possible it's us. And by the time like you have all these thoughts going through your head, they announce it and like you just go crazy. And so like back then, I mean, winning first wasn't even like it was a goal, but it was one of those things where you're like, oh, this is it. It was just a dream, you know. But then when they announced our name, that was when it's like, okay, oh shit, this is real.
just I remember I was in awe the whole night. Like I was just like, whoa, like holy crap, we just won. And I think did Sid judge that comp, or was he there?
Sid judged this comp.
That means the judging was definitely less than
That's right, yo, fucking Sid.
So Sid Pandit has been judging Furteelay since 2012.
One other cool thing that had happened at this time was, so at that point it was kind of just me and Sunpreet kind of doing everything. From this point on, I remember we had more people start helping within the team, and they started contributing more. So Sakraj, Arin, they were really and Vic, those Sakraj and Vic, they were really helpful in terms of choreo and just ideas, and they really started bringing a lot of unique ideas to the table that took stuff to the next level. I think I forgot what performance it was one of the Big Apples, but like Arin just snapped, and like he like went on this trajectory where he like became so freaking good, and like all these things were like happening. Like we got more help from the team, our dancers were getting better, and so each comp we were just like, what can we do more now? So we figured out how to win. Now it was just like, what can we do to add on to what we're doing and build our own identity.
I guess not huge, but that was one of like the criticisms that Simz and I got in the early days. It was like, you guys are doing everything on your own, but you're not letting anyone have input, you know. And so we started. It was almost kind of like that control thing of where like it's your baby and you don't want to give it up, you know. You want everything your way, but I think like opening it up was one of those things that really, again, buying into that system where everyone is putting in a little bit, so that you are really truly invested in the final product.
We're now entering Big Apple during the summer of 2012.
We grew like that. We tied with SGPD that summer. They were like our version of like SPD, like them and SGPD and NJ. One biggest moment that happened to me, and they may or may not remember, but I remember me and Sunpreet talking about it, was I think after tech time, they came up to us or something at Big Apple, and they were like, yo, these kids got a lot better. Like, and that, just hearing that from them, irrespective of getting that second or tying with them, we were just in awe. Like, dude, we've looked up to you guys since we started Bhangra. Like, you're one of the reasons we do Bhangra. Like, and to even say that statement, like, I think high schoolers, it was just like, wow, like, you guys acknowledged us. Like, holy crap.
So like they were there when we kind of started.
Okay.
And so them saying, you know, them telling us that we got so much better, just like I think a year and a half or 2 years later, was like, I think that's why it was like really truly so special, because they saw us from the beginning and like where we started, and then we kept seeing them over and over again at various competitions. I think Musty they were at, and then we saw them again at Big Apple, and I think that was one of the big things, like Simz said, and
now we're entering the fall of 2012.
So this is where we had a shift where some of our dancers, we didn't have as many as the core people before. We needed some new dancers. So this was actually another cool part where dancers came from Wolverine, Bhangra, some of our boys on that team.
Sorry, just a quick frame of reference. This is when most of us are entering college. So freshman year of college. And that's kind of why a lot of our dancers dispersed and they went all across the state. But this is why we needed new dancers.
Oh, okay.
They had been doing collegiate Bhangra for a while, and they were just seeking something new. We kind of knew them, and it was like a perfect mesh. And like when they joined, like chemistry doesn't always work out, but like we were very fortunate that when they joined in, like they literally became our brothers, and like till this day, like those guys are our brothers. And I would say they're like, if that first list was like the OGs, this is like the OG 1.5. Like they're just, if not the OGs, like they're part of it too. And with them, they had experience, they had danced before, so we didn't necessarily have to train people from Raw, but like they brought in a good vibe. Like it was just like, you're getting dancers coming in and they're ready to go. We had our system, and we just kept like that same vibe. We kept riding it out.
Although there weren't any team chemistry issues, they did have to make some changes going from predominantly high school dancers to predominantly college dancers.
Yeah, so we went from I think practice, I think 3 or 4 practices, 2 hours a week, to doing I think almost 12 hours within 2 or 2.5 days. So it was legit. It was legit like Friday night after school from like 8 to 12, and then Saturday morning from like 10 to 2 or 10 to 3, and then.
Well, fuck you
and
guys,
then
man.
I think Sundays we left for school. And like and there was I remember this one weekend specifically. Shout out Akam. He wanted to go to one of the football games, and so he's like, yo, and it was like a week or two before competition, right? And so Simz and I were like, there's no way you can skip, right? We're having this practice no matter what.
Yeah.
So he's like, okay, how about if we shift it, right? So instead of doing like 10 to 3, how about we do 6 to 10 or 6 to 11, 6 a.m. Mind you, after practice, after a Friday night practice from 8 to 12, 8 p.m. to midnight, let's do a 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. practice. And we were hesitant, but we were like, okay, let's put it up for a vote, to the team. And we voted for it. And like, I mean, credit to everyone. Everyone showed up. We had the practice. It was a proper practice. But it's like that's the lengths we went through, and like that.
But before that was MCB. And that's where we had our first, like, after a long time, like our like a not a placing. It was tough. I mean, you're dancing in front of your home crowd. We're used to success. We know how to do things now. I think to a fault, on my end, I think this is where finding the balance of like creating something new versus keeping versus not keeping. And I think that's where things got a little tough, where we had a set which we took to Big Apple, and then we kind of modified it for Kidhaaaan and BBC, and it worked well there. And then we went to MCB, which was pretty soon, like I think within 2 months, like in January. People were kind of on Christmas break, and I think just we put something together. We went on stage, didn't turn out the way it did, and I think it definitely, like, we all definitely felt it, because we had gotten so much like love outside of our state at all these comps we went to, irrespective of placings. And I think when we went to MCB, it was kind of like a lot of us didn't get to place in front of our parents at all those comps, and we had an opportunity, and it was just like, you really wish you could have capitalized on that.
I mean, we started flipping things that we probably shouldn't have flipped, and we threw away solid segments that we had cleaned. We had everyone just kind of knew it like the back of their hand. They could dance with their eyes closed and hit all the formations. It just kind of put us a step back from where we were a couple months before that.
A lot of these successful teams, like, they'll do one comp a year, and I was like, okay, that makes sense. But if you're doing so many, like, FCB is actually a great example. I think you guys did that pretty well, where even if you do something fresh, like, you'll clean it to the T from one comp to the other, even if we haven't seen it before. And I think just finding the balance of, like, okay, you do need to clean new shit if you're going to put new shit in at the sacrifice of an old segment. And I think just that transition was kind of rough. Bhangra was also becoming a lot at this point. Like, we weren't at the point where we were sick of it, but like, we just went through like a full half year of competing, and then we're on winter break. So like, not as many of us came together to all those practices versus the summer before, 5 mile radius, everyone's together every day.
Yeah, and like you have dancers, that want to go to the football games. They want to do this, they want to do that. But the problem is the only time we could practice is like Friday and Saturday, which is prime time doing other shit, right? Doing college shit.
On one hand, we were like, okay, we didn't place. But then the other part of it was like, you know what? Like, we watched it and we talked about it after, and we were like, we really didn't give our best effort forward, and we could have done better.
Now, at this point of the conversation, I really wanted to save these sillier questions for the end, but I was cracking, so I randomly just spill halfway through because I just had to know. When did the shings start? So for the uninitiated, Furteelay has a few famous gimmicks that are unique to their team's identity. Trampolines are one of them, and more famously, the...
So that was before MLIB.
Yeah, MLIB.
Yeah, I remember it was one of those situations where we're in that cafeteria that I told you about, and like just playing music and like, yo, think of whatever core you guys can think of. Like, let's see if we can think of anything cool. And I remember one of the groups was Bobby and Sakraj, and like we all started presenting our stuff, and then like Bobby and Sakraj did that move, and then we were just like, yo, this is sick. And then from there the idea literally just went in that set. We added that sound effect, and then I don't think we knew it was going to hit as much as it did or become our identity, but like I remember that group, and I'm pretty sure it was them too, like they thought of that shing, and it was like I think the song was Pat Sutya by JK, and the second verse, Dod Chitta Sood Tere Bolalal. I think that verse, that's where they did it, and then the rest is just history. And then I added the shings and the music, and
I had one at home, and I brought it, and I was like, let's think of something with this. And then we tried a couple things. We tried like we tried crisscrossing, and we tried everyone jumping on like one by one, and we tried this and that, and then we finally just settled on I think the first time, well actually all the times, we just settled on one person jumping onto the back, and then two people going ham and like putting it into a midla segment, because like we didn't know how else to incorporate it, so we were like, you can throw whatever you want in a midla and it's usually okay.
So like I think we were also kind of seeking something fresh ourselves. Like Bhangra has been done a certain way, like what can we do to be outside of the box? And I think that's where those funky ideas started coming from, where it's like, what can we do that's something different?
All right, back to the real questions. So now we're going into the fall of 2013, and the cracks are starting to show. Dancers are starting to graduate, and Furteelay has to start pulling more and more out-of-town dancers to fill rosters.
I don't think we had 12 ever fully. We're all at a different stage of our life at this point. I think we've been doing Bhangra for like 6-7 years at this point, and I think a lot of us were rearing the tail end of college. That was a long time we had done Bhangra. So, some people were thinking about retiring, some of us were graduating. It was like a different priority for all of us. And
Gotcha.
I can say for myself at that time, I didn't understand that change that well, and I didn't handle it that well, because I became so focused with winning that change I didn't pay as much attention to the different moving pieces versus just wanting to win. That took the fun away from the team, because it was all about winning versus why we really started this team in the first place.
It got to the point where placing wasn't really enough. It was always that battle of practice or have fun at college, or not even college, but like outside life, because it was like most of us were at school from Monday through Friday, and Friday night through Saturday night was practice, and then Sunday was like the one true day we had to do something. And even then it was like we were so exhausted from practice and school, Sunday was just a day to catch up on shit that we had just left behind throughout the week. And it just got to the point where it was like not everyone was bought in anymore. Like not everyone was giving that full time, and people were done with the placing, and they had done it, and so it was time to move on.
Now we're talking about T-Dot in the fall of 2013 and MCB in January of 2014.
That was definitely one of funnest, yet also one of the most frustrating points that we had as a team. But we went to WBC, and then so we didn't compete for super long. We didn't compete that summer, and that year was similar to like MLIB, whereas it's like we're gonna snap, we're going for the dub. But I think that's where we started becoming like, let's aim to win. At that point we felt really confident, like coming off of T-Dot with that win. We took that same mentality, we went to MCB, and I think it was definitely tough, and like for sure when we went to that judges meeting, like our faces were pissed. Like we on our end, we like at some points we felt like the competition wasn't fully described as a folk competition. We knew it was folker, felt like we hit the checkbox and everything, and then we added a few creative things here or there, and maybe we didn't do our moves in a sequence of like 8 or the exact sequence they should be, but we felt like every other checkbox we checked off. Like we were the cleanest. We felt like we were the cleanest. We felt like we had the best energy, but then we just felt short in the traditional category because we decided to do a couple extra things for our home crowd.
It was a robbery. It was a straight robbery. I'm being honest with you. I was there and I watched every single team perform. It was a straight robbery.
So we kept most of the T-Dot set. We cleaned it. We refined it. We changed up a couple segments, but it was like we felt good. Like we felt, you know, that MLIB level where we walked into that weekend feeling like, okay, we own this. We're gonna run it, and we're gonna make sure we win first. That was one of the moments. That was probably one of the competitions where we were furious. Like we did everything right. We stuck to our system. Everybody was just clicking, having a good time. But for whatever reason, the judges didn't think so, and that was like one of the times we were pissed.
To our credit, I'll tell you one thing. I don't think me and Sunpreet like yelled at them when we're there. Like, we were pissed and we asked questions, but that's something me and him would never do.
Like, we would go to these Toronto competitions and people would lose, right? And the team that lost would show up with bats to the hotel.
What?
Legit, like that's happened.
Oh my God.
And we were like, okay, like at that, even like at that point, we were like, okay, if you're gonna show up with bats and like have a fight over it, like what's the point, you know? Like we never wanted to turn into that. Like we saw the shitty side of people, and we never wanted to turn into that.
And we didn't. But it was still on our faces, and for some reason that was like taken out of proportion. Like, you guys acted like this, you guys did this, and like it was really just on our faces. And I don't think a lot of reflecting on my part in the later years to kind of come through this kind of thinking and mindset. And I encourage, like, if any other captains are listening to this and you go through something like this, like, try to reflect it. Like, I think you'll realize later on in your years.
Now, Bruin Bhangra is a huge competition out in LA during the summer. It demands a creative and production-based performance. First time Furteelay goes was in 2015, and they don't compete at all the entire following season, preparing for Bruin 2016.
But basically, so 2015 happened, we went to Bruin, and 2015 rolls around. We take a decent set. I think it was really clean. Maybe not what the rubric wanted at that time. Like, I realized after that, like, really outside of the box, you got to figure it out. But that was a loss where I was just like so frustrated, where I felt like Bruin was the comp. I wanted to go back and win again. Like, that was it. And that's where, on my end, the focus became like, I just want to win Bruin. And that's it. And from there, I got a little crazy with it. And I think that led to, I don't think we competed all of we did WBC before Bruin, but after Bruin 2015, we didn't compete at all, because I think towards the end of that, we needed so many dancers that we were kind of outsourcing, borrowing, that it wasn't even like the original full core. The first time we went was more, we still had the mentality that we wanted to do well there, but I think it was a lot of it was just the excitement of being there, while still wanting to win. The second one more was where it was really stressful. Like, I think we, to a sense, we went away from what we did best just to think of such creative ideas. And I think that put so much pressure on all our dancers. Like, I remember, like, the worst feeling was, and I know, like, first half of the podcast was kind of like all this other stuff, but I think it's important to share this too. I remember we had our projector, and we kind of left it in the hotel, and I just remember all of us feeling a certain type of way, where we were just like, we had a huge gimmick where we were going to show like a face through smoke, and like we had forgotten that. And then at that moment, we were all just like, you could just feel it, something was kind of like not there that we always had. And I think that was like a really tough moment to kind of soak in.
No one had chemistry, you know, no one was on the same page. Literally no two people were on the same page. It just didn't feel like Furteelay.
I think we had like three types of people on the roster. One group was really excited to just be there. One group wanted to really win. One group was kind of in the middle and not sure. And I think for the most part, it was just like us kind of running practice, and everyone just like everyone was just kind of confused, I feel like.
Our practices went from making sure every single dancer was there the whole time. It went from, you know, our practices became 8 people at a time or 6 people at a time. Yeah, and so it was like I think there was maybe a hand. You could probably count all the practices we had as a full team on one hand. and most of those were actually in California.
It was either me or Sakraj. One of us like went too hard at like yelling at the team, and I think that's where like I think Sunpreet came up and told us like this is not like what Furteelay is, and I think at that point it was just like, whoa, like I took the fun, like we took the fun out of the team, like what it used to be, and I think that's probably the biggest moment that like made me realize that things could have been a lot better.
And when Bruin finally ended,
on some cases it was like relief, like thank God this is done, like this was so stressful for so long, we had this target on our back for a year, like thank God like this is over with. In some cases it was like more like let's try again, like I think it was just like the out of calibration, like people, like there was so many different feelings, but I think a theme throughout was probably like thank God this is over with. It's like that Bruin shirt, I forgot what year they brought it out, it was like thank God I survived Bruin. I think, yeah, I know for myself, and I think all the guys on the trip can probably say this about me. I definitely did not handle it well. Like, I was just like not talking to anybody. Like, I remember we went to our friend's house and like everyone was going on trips, and I just was like not talking. Like, I was like, it was like I was being a jerk. Like, to be honest, at that point, like it was just like I did not handle it well.
after Bruin 2016, the future for Furteelay was shaky. Not many of the corn dancers were left, and Furteelay actually had to hold its first tryout since 2011. And
our first comp that we kind of got the opportunity to dance at was 2016. And I remember in the group chat, they said, like, we'll be taking 2 of you guys. And then all of us are like, yo, none of us are dancing. And then we come to the next practice after they say that 2 thing. And then we hear, yeah, so everyone dropped, all you guys are dancing. So we joined Furteelay, right? But no, we're Furteelay. So are we even on a good team, or has nothing changed?
subscribe to the podcast to get the next episode of the Furteelay interview as soon as it's released.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Bhangra Podcast. Be sure to follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Please help us out by rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts and Podchaser, as that really helps others find the podcast. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, all of them at the Bhangra Pod. If you want to know what else is going on in the podcast world, sign up for our newsletter and join our Discord server to get exclusive content you won't get anywhere else. There will be links to all of those in the show notes.